Good evening to everybody. My name is Raffaele Torino. I am the director of the Eurodirect Roma Tre University. I am more than happy that today, the last episode of our Europa and Libri, Europe by Books, we have the great opportunity to present and to discuss from this book edited by Giorgio Brizio, and with several contributions of 27 European activists from many years from tomorrow. In this presentation of this book, we will have the opportunity to listen from Giorgio Brizio reasons and motivation underpinning this book, and we have also the opportunity to ask some direct questions to some of these European activists, in particular to Annika Kruse and Annette Bick. I see and I know that Giorgio is now in Baku for the COP conference, which the main theme is the climate change. And I really would like to start without any further losing of time. I would like to start with Giorgio, asking him why he decided to edit this book and how are the main results of this so interesting book. Giorgio, the floor is yours.
So, first of all, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for organizing this. I hope to say something that makes sense in English. My English is not that good, and also because here in Baku in Azerbaijan is quite late. It was a long day, but coming to the book, well, it was I think a very, very simple idea. So the idea of putting together 27 activists, one from each European member state, and this is the criteria we adopted because we would have also loved to have a contribution from some activists in Switzerland. Switzerland hosted the first European meeting of Fridays for Future, or someone from Norway, or someone from Ukraine, or someone from I don't know, Palestine or Israel, or from Georgia, since in Georgia right now there are big pro-European demonstrations and so on, but we didn't know which other criteria we could choose apart from the member states that are currently a part of the EU. And so we adopted these again criteria, and for this reason we tried to find 27 people willing to write in quite short time, because we wanted to publish the book at least 1 month before the elections, European elections that were held in the middle of June. So we published the book at the beginning of May, and it was quite an effort to find the people and the activists willing to do this, and Annika and Annette are two of them, and I'm really honestly grateful with and to them. But also because different contributors, we asked to most of the contributors to write in English, but all comprehensively, not everyone could do it. So there was quite a huge work of first of all translating everything from English or from Spanish, from Greek and other languages to Italian, and then we decided both to give the contributors themselves the possibility to read the book, because otherwise it would have been simply in Italian, but also to let's say make it accessible to a wider public. We did our best to have it also in English. It's not published in paper version in English, but it's an e-book. And to conclude this first part, I had the feeling about the fact that these, especially three issues, so the issue of climate, the issue of peace, and the one of human rights, So the rights of the migrant people, the rights of women, of the LGBTQIA plus community, in general, like rights could be the three topics that are let's say on which not only a generation of European but a generation of people from all over the world are focusing and are trying to tackle, and so these are also not the only ones, because the book is quite broad on the issues covered, but they are I mean, at least in my consideration, the topics that are mostly covered by the contributors.
Thank you, Giorgio. And if I can say something in the introduction of this book, that I know that is also translated in Italian and published by Bollati Borghieri. In this introduction, I have the English one. You say that European activists have many privileges and advantages. What do you mean with this declaration? Or what do you mean? What is the importance of what you are saying in this point?
Oh, we are privileged for many reasons, but of course we live in most of us live in countries in which demonstrating and coming to a street is something which is considered quite normal and especially possible to do, and that's also why we're seeing at COP. So in this case, COP29 in Azerbaijan, and I would like to ask later also Annika to say something about this. Like, as we're seeing that this space gives also the possibility to people from all over the world, from Africa, from Southeast Asia, from South America, to demonstrate and ask for a change and pretend a change from world leaders who are gathering here. Also because in some of their countries demonstrating could be quite more complicated. So if I not, well, of course I brought the introduction in Italian, not in English, so I already I wouldn't know how to quote it, but I also brought something that said, until now we have seen that demonstrating in Europe was something in general possible, because we are seeing repression, very strong repression, which I think would say started especially in UK with Extinction Rebellion, with the movement Extinction Rebellion, but now it's spreading all over Europe, and we are seeing activists, and we don't have to maybe agree with what they do, with the way of protesting they choose. I'm referring especially to the movement which is called Ultima Generazione in Italy, but it's Letzte Generation in Germany, or Just to Poil in UK, in Slovenia, and in other countries. But the fact that activists for climate and for human rights are being jailed, are being persecuted, well, it's tremendous, and also the special reporter of the United Nations, Michael Forrest, was quite shocked and denounced the case under which in his opinion, for example, what happened at the court in the UK with these 5 activists condemned to 4 years of jail, in his opinion, violates the Aarhus Convention on activism. So of course we are still very privileged. Of course we live still in the rich world, who is responsible of most of historical CO2 emissions, but is not paying the highest consequences. This is what we call climate injustice. But also on the point of view of activism, we are seeing a higher and growing repression.
Thank you, Giorgio. Already in your introduction, you wrote that the fight for the climate, for peace, for rights is an intergenerational fight. And we know that maybe Annika is the youngest among us. And I would ask to Annika if what she thinks about this idea of Giorgio, that this fight is intergenerational, and what does it mean for you and for the others. Of course, I will ask this also to Annette, this point. Annika first.
I think there's different aspects to it. I think for once, it's that when we started climate striking in 2019, I think it was very much this narrative of we are going to be the ones that will be the most affected by it because um, we're the younger generation and we will live on this planet for longer than people that were already older at this point. So we knew that the climate crisis was mostly going to affect us. However, now I think the situation has changed more drastically than we thought it would. There's lots of extreme weather events everywhere around the world. We see that now everyone is affected. So we also see that everyone realizes that the climate crisis does have damaging effects. So I think that is one reason why many people, like from all generations, are now kind of waking up and taking action. And we've seen that already towards the second half of 2019, that we saw more adults and more parents or grandparents even joining our climate strikes. So the movement has really gotten intergenerational since then. In the end, it is everyone's responsibility living on this planet right now to do everything they possibly can to protect the planet for everyone, not just for the younger generation. It's at this point, it's really for everyone, and it's minimizing the effects.
Before that, I give the word to Annette. Can I ask you what kind of pragmatic action the young generation can perform to stimulate the older generation to react?
I think the most effective way really is just talking to the people that you know, just talking to everyone, kind of letting everyone in like your own little circle just know about the climate crisis and know why you should care about it. For me, when I started doing my climate activism, it just really helped just alone talking to my parents about it, because then my parents would tell their friends and then it just spread the word. And I think that's just so immensely effective, and people just underestimate how effective that is, just talking to the people you know, and then also going on demonstrations and maybe also taking other people with you to demonstrations.
Thank you, Annika. Annette, I would like to listen to your point of view and also asking you, what is your opinion about what European Union is doing for this fight? Thank you, Annette.
Yes, hello, good evening, everyone. I'm here from Riga, Latvia. And I think it's definitely an intergenerational fight when it comes to adapting to climate change and the catastrophic weather events that we have more frequently that really impact us already here in Europe, with all the floods that are happening all the time, with the warm summers and the colder winters. And it's really, we can't keep denying that the climate is changing and just saying that it doesn't affect us here in Europe. We somehow always feel like Europe is this safe haven and we're going to be the last to be impacted, but we are impacted even today. And I think that it's very important when it comes to climate and environmental action. It's very important to prioritize what's more important. I've always felt that it's most important to reduce our CO2 emissions, because if we don't stop the planet from heating up, eventually we will have no biodiversity to protect. We will have no society to take care of. So I think Europe is on the right path with the Green Deal and with transforming our economy, the way that we function. And that's the path we should stay on very pragmatically, to reform the way that we conduct business. It has to be this new way. It has to be a way where we produce way less CO2 emissions and stop the planet from heating up.
Thank you, Annette. Always from the introduction of Giorgio. In the introduction, Giorgio wrote, each of these conflicts, I referring to the conflicts, wars, Ukraine, Nagorno-Karabakh, Mediterranean, Gaza, each of these conflicts is deeply wrapped up with fossil fuel interests. And is this idea still understood? COP29 reacted is in COP29 or 29 or not? What is your opinion, Giorgio?
So Well, first of all, I think we have to create this link and make it clear, because I don't think that European media has covered it enough, especially in Italy. There is an intersection between climate and the war, and one of its aspects is are fossil fuels. So, well, of course, you know that the European Union has decided, after the escalation or invasion of Ukraine, to, of course, do not actually reduce its amount of gas taken from Russia, but simply to diversify it. And so Italy decided to ask for more gas to Angola, to Mozambique, to Tunisia, to Algeria, and also to Azerbaijan, where we are right now, which is kind of a fossil dictatorship. There are also professors here in jail in Azerbaijan for showing the fact that Azerbaijan is also buying gas from Russia and selling it to European countries. And so there is, of course, a contradiction in it. And we have also to remember that Azerbaijan also did an invasion last year in Nagorno-Karabakh, in the Armenian community of Nagorno-Karabakh. So, well, things are quite complicated, but often linked with fossil fuels. And a day in which, for example, Italy, a day before when Italy abstained at the General Assembly of the United Nations on a resolution on Israel, the day before the Italian biggest oil company, Eni, had obtained a license to research and use and exploit more gas from Israel in Palestinian, in theory, Palestinian waters. So fossil fuels are normally linked with all conflicts. And at this proposal, and of course the fact of being in Azerbaijan is very problematic about this. I would like to ask, maybe we can switch first to Aneta and then to Annika, because, well, first of all, today it's 1,000 days of war in Ukraine. And 3 or 4 hours ago, I attended an event here in Baku where the Minister of Ecology of Ukraine was witnessing the damages, which are not only, of course, in terms of cost of human lives in Ukraine, but also of natural disasters and everything that follows. And I know that Aneta is also very active in, of course, I don't know how to say, the support to Ukraine, and this gives me the opportunity to say that in the book we didn't look for 27 people who agree on everything, and the result is that these 27 contributors don't agree on everything. But I find it so beautiful, actually, because if we would all agree, it would be, I think, quite boring and useless. Instead, especially on the Palestinian issue, there are different sensibilities in the book. But so I would like to ask Aneta, maybe if she is fine with that, a bit more about the fact that the renewable energies and the ecological transition can be nice and can be something cute, something that activists can ask and so on, something important, something for, of course, climate change, but also can become a policy for peace, a policy for becoming independent from countries which are a lot of things, but are not for sure democracies. And instead, I would like to ask later to Annika. In her contribution, she writes also a lot about the protests in Germany against AfD. Germany is one of the countries that in the past years connected itself the most with Russian gas, and that had the biggest problems to diversify and its energy supply. Now things are changing. There is a political and government crisis. There was a call of the Prime Minister, of the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, a few days ago to Putin. And so these links between geopolitics, climate, and conflicts are, if possible, even more evident. And I would like to ask both of you about this thing.
Thank you, Giorgio. I think that's a very, very great question. And I myself, I come from a security background. I studied international security. So I tend to look at things from the security perspective and international politics perspective. And we have to understand that energy is super politicized these days. And we saw that Russia, for example, uses energy as a tool for offense when it realizes it hybrid attacks. For example, in Ukraine, before the full-scale invasion, when it was threatening this energy supply. So in today's modern age, where energy is so politicized, it's so important to have this political will within EU countries to understand that it is politicized and take political decisions to decouple ourselves from the Russian gas, from the Russian electricity grids, which the Baltic countries are actually very proudly doing. February of 2025 is the set date when the Baltic states will decouple completely from the Russian electricity grid and Belarusian one. And Latvia itself, like more than 50% of our energy comes from renewables, from the water energy, and we have more and more solar projects. We're looking into wind projects as well. So it's really about the political will, and it's, as Giorgio said, it's not only important to diversify, but also to use this decoupling from Russian energy as an opportunity to invest in green technology. And I think that's also very essential of where the youth comes in, because I think it's so important to invest in young people's ideas, because I personally really, really believe that there are so many young people with these modern skills and understandings of science, and actually like an interdisciplinary understanding of how energy and politics and science works together to bring these modern solutions. So it's so important to invest in young people that will actually come up with these solutions in technology that will help us mitigate the negative effects of climate change and adapt to the horrible, by the way, I have to say, not natural disasters, but climate disasters that we have these days, because there's nothing natural about them anymore at this point. So that would be my take on that. And Annika, I'll give the floor to you.
We cannot hear you, Annika. You are muting.
Sorry. I also think that's a really interesting topic, especially since, Giorgio and we are in Azerbaijan right now. So I think this is like the best place to see that this is a big issue, because, for example, Azerbaijan, its economy is based 90% on fossil fuels, and Azerbaijan is an autocratic system. So that's an issue. And we see that more. For example, there's even like studies linking that issue. It links, for example, the finding of oil to a lower democracy score. So there are scientific studies that undermine this. For example, also Azerbaijan, its economy is based heavily on fossil fuels, and they also export fossil fuels to the EU. And that's also one way that we actually get Russian gas without even really importing Russian gas, because it goes through the border. They're getting the gas from Russia through Azerbaijan and then to the EU, so that it's labeled as Azerbaijani gas. However, it's Russian gas, which then finances Russia's invasion to Ukraine, for example. So in Germany, even though we're technically independent from Russian gas since, I think, the beginning of this year. They have worked a lot on that during the past years, which, although is just an issue itself, because now they're importing other gas, which is not technically better. So we are still somewhat importing Russian gas. And I think that way we can really see that everything is interconnected and when it comes to the climate crisis. So renewable energies are not just the more sustainable option for a planet, it is also the safer option. It prevents wars from happening. It strengthens the democracy and also strengthens the economy. So I think that's a really, really important topic, and also something that some politicians that are really good at communicating climate policy, they also communicate that. And I think that is also really helpful to gain the support of the society for more climate policies.
Thank you, Annika. In your book, you touch also the issue that the climate change fight is a dimension fight, and we can read that European Union and the member states are quite irrelevant from a dimensional point of view. We are few, Europeans are few, but you say that Europe is important, European Union is important in this climate change fight. Why, Annette? Why, Annika? Why, Giorgio? Annette?
Well,
Giorgio, it's up to you. Who would
Okay.
like to Giorgio?
I
up
could
to you.
just start really quick because I think the EU is just because it's a collection of that many states and it has a lot of inhabitants and it has a large share of the global GDP. It has the power in the world, and it just not only has a high share of emissions in the world, and that's why when they communicate on climate targets, on common climate targets, they can all stick to it, and there's just lots of emissions reduced. But it also, when the EU strengthens their climate policy, it sends a strong signal to, for example, the USA, to China, to all the high emitting to all the high emitting countries. So that's that would always be a big step. So I think that's mainly why it's important.
Giorgio, you would like to add something?
well, I don't have the capacity to be so short as Annika does, but of course, yeah, the European Union is now responsible of 8% of total global emissions, but it's also responsible of 29% of historical emissions. And if we consider all the global north, then the global north is responsible of 92% of historical global emissions. And of course, we have to take this into account. The European Union is luckily represented at the COP as a whole. And I say luckily because, well, let me do this bracket about Italy, since probably most of the people who are listening are from Italy. Well, our Prime Minister of Environment and Energy Security, named by the government, Meloni, is even a good person. Nothing to say against him personally, but he has a couple of problems. The first problem is that he discovered to be Minister of the Environment on Instagram. And what do I mean with that? Well, he published a card on Instagram thanking, like being thankful for being named Minister of Public Administration. But overnight, at the last moment, Meloni decided to switch the government of the Minister of Public Administration, Zangrillo, with the minister, with the one who would have become Minister of Environment, Pichetto Fratin. So all of a sudden he became Minister of Environment without knowing anything about environment, about climate, about ecological transition. Furthermore, Pichetto Fratin is quite a bigger problem here at COP, which is that he doesn't speak English at all. And well, even if there are translators and facilities, it's quite a problem at this international level. Last year we were really lucky because we found each other as European Union during the 6 months of the Spanish presidency of the European Council, and that meant that the European delegation was led by the Minister of Environment and Ecological Transition of Spain, who is called Teresa Ribera, and now is probably, hopefully, about to be named Vice Commissioner of the European new Commission, which I think would be this is, of course, a personal view, the better news about this, the best news about this new commission. And Teresa Ribera creating an alliance between the European Union and the coalition called AOSIS, so from Pacific Islands, really managed to enhance and give to unlock a bit the negotiation last year at COP. Now, and maybe also on this point, and I go to a conclusion, but on this point, maybe also Annika and Annette could say something with of course, we published the book knowing and writing that this year was very special because there would have been 76 elections in the world, more than half of the world population going to vote, but we didn't know, of course, which one would have been the result of the election in the States. And now we know it, of course. And I think that maybe it's the only one that comes to my mind, positive thing about the election of, not positive, but the only thing of the election of Donald Trump is that it could give the European Union the chance to become a point of reference and a guide in the climate negotiation. The problem is that the European Union doesn't have a guide at all in this moment. So we have Macron that is weak, also because of the last vote in France. We have Olaf Scholz that didn't come, and Annika and other activists from Germany did a demonstration in the German pavilion denouncing the fact that he gave priority more to the crisis of the government than to the climate crisis. And Ursula von der Leyen didn't come because the European Union was so stupid to schedule the auditions of the new commissioners during the COP, and many other leaders didn't come. Probably the most, let's say, with the highest, biggest majority behind his or her shoulders in this moment is the president of Italy, Giorgio Meloni, who is very close to climate denialism. And so this is the point in which we find ourselves. A European Union could have the chance to become a guide of the negotiation, but doesn't have, again, a guide itself. And this is, of course, not only a problem, but a sad acknowledgement.
Maybe to respond to both of those themes, I find them very, very interesting. And I do have to admit that I also feel quite grim about the kind of tendencies of voting more conservative, voting more extremist around the Western world. We could not have predicted that when we wrote the book. I feel like we were a bit more optimistic about our chances to impact the world, make it a better place at that point, and now it's a bit grim. And I agree 100% with Giorgio that it would be very important for Europe to kind of understand who is going to be the next leader of Europe, or who multiple people will kind of rise to the occasion and step up and really support Ukraine until its victory over Russia in its war of aggression in Ukraine, and show true leadership in the fight against climate change as well. But not to be only very negative. I think, to respond to the original question about the role of Europe in climate action, I feel like Europe holds a monopoly over climate diplomacy around the world. Diplomats that are working day to day in conflict zones, responding to humanitarian disasters. These climate diplomats, I think they play a very huge role in solving these crises, like contributing to a possible solution, ending Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, and everywhere. So I think Europe needs to step up to this occasion when it comes to climate diplomacy, because all of these conflicts that we have going on around the world, which I believe are around 57 active conflicts, they're also have very negative consequences on the environment. So I think that's something where Europe could work more on, and also the global partnerships that we develop through different development cooperation projects. We can share technology And I think that's how Europe can step up, even without the political leadership, and the day-to-day work that we're doing that is good work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you. I have now a last question for all of you, of course, because I imagine that your essay have been written during the last part of 2023. And now we are at the end of 2024. And Giorgio, Annika, and Annette, if you could write now your introduction, your essay, what you would have changed at this moment? Very shortly, of course.
I
Giorgio
let
first.
more. I was about to say that I would have let them start first because I would have liked to have more time to think about the answer, but then I'll improvise it now. I think maybe it's a simple and a simple answer, but I don't think I would have written something much more different. Of course, we would have known, but it would have been easier. But we would have known the results of other elections. Of course, we always look north and we always look west, but we should also sometimes look east and look to the south. So there were also many other important elections this year, and of course, it's nice to say that more of the half of the world population went to vote, but we can say this only because India went to vote, and the elections in India were also very important. More than 1 billion people was asked to vote in India. So there are like elections in the States, but it's not only that. And I think that after now that we know these results, we are aware of the fact that what we have written probably as honestly less hope to be realized, but on the other side as more strength to that has to be brought over, if we can say that, in the sense that we don't have to give up. We have to remain convinced of what we are doing and what we are fighting for. And to conclude, I spent most of my summer in Kenya, and I found myself in the middle of a protest, and I was quite surprised to see that together with their basic needs and together with autodetermination, young people, not only that young people, and of course young people are the majority in a country like Kenya, and not differently from Italy, Germany, or also, even if less, Latvia. But between the struggles they were mentioning and their fights, there was also the one for environment, the one for climate. So this issue has really become intergenerational, but also global. And so the challenge is, we have seen in these years a globalization of resources, a globalization of information. Now this has also to correspond and to go with a globalization of human rights and a globalization of our big movement.
Thank you, Giorgio. Annette?
Yes, I think I agree. I have the same sentiment about not really wanting to change that much. And I think I would more emphasize one of the points that I was making. And I referenced the statistic of around 30% of the world being youth, and only around 3% of youth being represented in parliaments around the globe, or being in decision taking places around the globe. So I think I would try to emphasize the point of how do we get young people in power to take decisions for our future. and how do we get young people elected? Who takes the responsibility? How do previous generations understand that they are the parents of us? They should be teaching us of how to be politically engaged, how to exercise our power, because it will define how our future unfolds. So I think that is a very, very important point that stands really across the board on all of these topics, and I would have just reinforced it.
Thank you, Annette. So last word to Annika. What would have been your change?
Yes, I think for me as well, most of what I wrote, I think, is still very fitting in these times, unfortunately. However, I do think that I don't know. I think if I would write it again, I would be more optimistic and pessimistic at the same time. I feel like we are in a really bad situation right now. We're also at a very crucial situation. I like to think to myself, it's probably now getting better. I really think that we're at a point where things really have to get better because all the elections, more conservatives, more far right, all around the world, that is frightening and that is bad for democracy. That is also bad for climate. But yeah, I think it's coming and going in waves, and we had like a huge up phase at the times of Fridays for Future in 2019, and I think it has gradually decreased. However, I do think that at this point there will come something good out of it. We have seen the last Trump term. Trump did horrendous things for the climate. It was awful, it was bad, it had a bad influence on all the world. However, what also happened during Trump's first term was that Fridays for Future even started. It created a momentum, and I think that that momentum to create something new will also come back very soon. So I am very hopeful that more people will realize what times we live in and realize that they also have to wake up and stand up and do something about it. So I'm hopeful about that at least.
Thank you. Thank you also to Annika. And thank you to all of you. Thank you, Giorgio. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Annika, for this book. I really suggest to the people, to all our viewers, to buy it and read it, because it's really a good example of what we can do for climate change and the other fights that we have considered in the book. So let's have a nice night now, especially you, Giorgio, in Baku, and good luck for any.
No, also Annika. Also Annika is in Baku. Yeah.
Also Annika is in Baku. So Annika too, also for you. So only Annette and me, we are in Europe at this moment. Thank you to all of you. Bye.
Vuoi un'Europa di pace? Vuoi il meglio per la tua famiglia, i tuoi amici e il futuro dei tuoi figli?
Ecco perché ti sta a cuore proteggere il clima e il nostro pianeta. Difendi i tuoi valori.
Credi nella libertà e nella democrazia e anche nell'energia pulita e rinnovabile prodotta in Europa. Certo, la strada è ancora lunga,
ma ce la faremo, perché camminiamo insieme, con te.
L'Europa sei tu.